aFe. Today we're going to be installing our Momentum GT cold air intake system on this 2021 RAM TRX 6.2 supercharged. Let's dive into it. Alright, first that's going to be removing this engine cover. Simply just pull up on the grommets, lift up. Okay, so now we're going to use a clip popper tool to remove the 16 clips securing this trim right here. So let's get into it. So now we're going to remove this hardware here securing this brace down. So we're going to start off by using a 13mm socket. Then we're going to remove this 10mm screw, and there's a 10mm nut in the back. All right, so now we're going to use an 8mm nut driver to loosen up the clamp for this intake tube. Now we're going to repeat the same steps we did on the driver's side to the passenger side. We're going to remove this bolt right here using a 13mm socket. Then we have a screw. We're going to use a 10mm socket, and we're going to remove this nut as well. It's a 10mm. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to remove the core support screws. There's two of them. And now we're ready to lift the intake off. So we do recommend using two people for this step. We're going to go ahead and remove the intake out of the vehicle. And we're going to put it off to the side. So now we're going to unbox our Momentum GT cold air intake. The part number for this is going to be 50-775KR. Let's dive into it. All right, so the kit comes with all the couplers you're going to need, the two massive air filters. Then we have our intake tubes, and then this ginormous housing, which I'll put off to the side right here, and all the hardware you're going to need for this installation. We're going to transfer our rubber drain over to our Momentum GT housing, and we want to install it in this orientation. We're going to remove the 10 screws securing the top of the housing using an 8mm socket. Now we're going to remove the top. This will give us access to these 4 screws so that we could remove the brace. Using a T30 bit, we're going to remove the 4 screws. We're going to remove the brace away from our factory intake. With our Momentum GT housing flipped upside down, what we want to do now is add these rubber bumps. While we're here, we're also going to add our rubber grommets and install the aluminum sleeve. And we're going to repeat the same step on that side. We're going to install our factory brace onto our Momentum GT housing. We're going to use the 2 screws out of the 4 that we removed from earlier on. It is important that we don't over tighten these so we don't pull the inserts out of the plastic housing. We're going to use a razor blade to split this hose in half, but be very, very careful. And we're going to pull it off. We're going to disconnect our air temp sensor. We're going to also loosen up our clamp. Once that's loosened, we can pull the intake tube as a whole. Now we're going to grab our driver's side intake tube. We're going to install our rubber grommet and our air temperature fitting. When we install this fitting, we want to make sure the orientation is correct. So you want to look at this arrow right here. We want to make sure it's pointing towards the airflow. Just like that. Now we're going to transfer our air temperature sensor from our factory tube over to our Momentum GT tube. Twist it on. We're going to install our coupler onto our throttle body. We're going to use these markings to align ourselves here. Once everything's aligned, we're going to go ahead and tighten it up using 8mm nut driver. Now we're going to install the supply hose onto the MUA system. Now we're going to install our 2 couplers, one on each end. We're going to want to tighten it all the way down. We're going to repeat the same step on this side. All right, now we're ready to put it in the truck. Now we're going to install our tube. We're going to slide the clamp onto the coupler here. And we're going to want to line up the tube with the coupler using this mark right here. We're going to use an 8mm nut driver to tighten everything down. And we're ready for our next step. Now we're going to install the hose to the port of our intake tube. Now we're going to install the housing with the brace inside the truck. Good. Our next step is to reinstall our hardware we previously removed from this brace. We're going to do it on the driver's side, and we're going to do the same thing on the passenger side. Now that we installed our brace, we're going to install our air filters into our housing by pressing in firmly to lock it into place. Now we're going to install our passenger side tube. First, we want to feed it into the coupler. Once it's in, we're going to want to put it into the filter. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to tighten up all the clamps. Next step is going to be to remove the fuse box cover to give us a little bit more clearance while installing this tube. Now that everything's lined up, we're going to go ahead and take our 8mm nut driver and tighten up the clamps. Same thing for the one down here. And we're going to reinstall our fuse box cover. Now we're going to reconnect our intake air temp sensor. Make sure it's secured. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reinstall the factory screws to the front of our housing. We're going to line everything up. And we're going to use a 10mm socket to tighten them up. We're going to use a 1/2" drill bit. What we're going to do is we're going to want to drill out these 2 holes right here so we could install hardware to secure our intake system. Now we're ready to install the factory cowl onto the truck. Using the supplied screws, we're going to go ahead and screw them in to our housing using a 3mm Allen wrench. And there's one also on this side. Like that. Now we're going to use the 2 supplied clips that are much longer. We're going to put them one on this side, one on this side, and they're going through the aFe housing. Our final step is to reinstall the factory clips back on. So once we're done installing the clips, we're going to go ahead and get a sound clip for you guys. All right, guys, that concludes our installation. Thank you guys for choosing aFe Power. We'll see you guys next time.